I like on Homeland, they always start with previously on Homeland, so I thought I'd start with a little recap of what I did last year in case you missed it. I don't know how many people were here. So I talked about that I was a travel writer. I've been outside the US for the last 20 years, living in Europe mostly and traveling around the world, 120 countries. Done stuff like this. We gone over some travel tips, by the way. I think if you recalled, I said that if you're going to buy meat at an asado in Argentina, you definitely don't want to be buying it from the guy who keeps a knife in the crack of his ass. We talked about how what tourists think they're going to do and what they actually do are often different things. You think you're going to get off the beaten path. You think you're going to meet the locals. Doesn't always work out like you planned. It also works out this way. We talked about marketing gaffes, and I showed it happens even to the multi-billion-dollar companies, like this sign for McDonald's outside of Australia. You guys get that? It does read my ass. The town's name is Yass, by the way. We talked about painful and strange signage out in the world. This is either the world's most painful chairlift or a ski-in, ski-out oncology clinic, or proctology clinic, I should say. And I think I remember asking how, you have to wonder how many of these cute little old grandmothers and grandfathers rolled to their tragic death before someone finally put up a sign to prevent it from happening. We talked about bad tourism slogans, like this one from Quebec. This is an older one. America with a certain je ne sais quoi. Lame. We talked about how the product and the brochure often mismatch. You've gotten so good at marketing that now the product needs to catch up to your great marketing. We talked about how the world is becoming homogenized, how the big cities are anyway. So there's that many in New York, over 1,000 in Beijing, 9 Kentucky Fried Chickens in New York City, over 1,000 in Beijing, which begs the question, which city is more Western? We went over this real quickly. This was from research out of Australia that showed, this was kind of surprising when it came out last year, that people who stay with friends and family have a bigger economic impact on the city than when they stay in a hotel. Because they go stay with their friends, they bring gifts, the hosts make nicer dinners, they come with you to the restaurant, and they come with you to the museum, and then maybe you feel like you've just saved $200 a night, 200 euros a night on a hotel room, so you go out and you buy clothes, or you buy jewelry, or you buy a new iMac or something. So that's how that works. And we also talked about how Disney didn't copy the wonders of the world. The wonders of the world copied Disney. They went out and saw what Disney was doing, and they put light shows on their great attractions. The Chinese went to Disney World, certainly, and then they went back to the Great Wall and put a Disney-like thing right in front of the Great Wall. It's bizarre, but it happens. And it's just getting harder and harder to tell what's real and what's phony. And I concluded with this image, and I said, this is a totally different talk. And Professor Dr. Conradi said, you must come back and give this talk this year. So this is where we're picking up. And this was the name of the talk. We just kind of came up with this about a month ago, and I had to sort of write the talk to match the title. And these are the things I'm going to go over today. And I thought before we get there, we need to do a little bit of a warm-up, because my main mission today is to challenge the way that you think about travel. Travel runs deep with people. You have some of your strongest memories, but at the same time, we often get so close to it, we can't see the forest for the trees. We lose perspective. So a little bit of perspective, I think, is healthy. So let's just to get your minds thinking outside the box a little bit. What about this concept? Business class with a bicycle helmet on. It seems like a bizarre idea, but maybe not so crazy when you look at the statistics. In America, last year, there were over 4,500 reported head injuries. And these are people, I imagine, they're getting hit in the head by their own luggage, like with the duty-free alcohol, bounce them on the head. And from turbulence in the same year, 53 head injuries. Or how about this? I looked around, I couldn't find, this does not necessarily true. The best information I could get was actually from Wikipedia, and they said there have been 0 lives saved from these oxygen masks. But when there was an airplane transporting an older system in the cargo bay, it actually malfunctioned and it brought a plane down. Or this kind of stuff. This is just a bizarre look at travel. Our own things, like these things on the left, these are things that we bring with us when we travel to make ourselves feel more comfortable, more like we're at home. And then the things on the right are things we bring home from our travels so that our homes feel more like travel. How about this? Did you ever wonder about that? I did. These are the free-range passports, if you're lucky enough to have one, and most of you probably do. Most these modern passports get you into about 130 countries without a visa. Here's some of the worst passports to have. These will combined not get you into 130 countries. And it's interesting, there's about 12 million people who can't even get one if they wanted to. And if you look at the Americans, they're going to find that really difficult to relate to because almost a third of Americans never bothered to get a passport. It's weird. Like I said, this is just a bit of a warm-up. Also, look at this. There's 40 million refugees right now around the world. That would put them, by the way, there's a little Photoshop in this picture. Just a little. That would put you number 6 if refugees were a destination. If we think of it that way, for just a second, just to think of travel through the eyes of a refugee for a moment, what does it mean? What is flying to them? What does it mean to go cruising? What does it mean to go hiking? Or go camping? It's good to just sort of think of things from someone else's perspective for a little bit. Anyway, that's the warm-up. So I thought we'd tackle this first question here, the all-inclusive thing. And I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do a history of the all-inclusive. Like, here's the very first one. The Club Med in Mallorca in the 1950s, they bought 200 US Army tents. And there's the more recent Club Med. We're not going to jump into that. And I'm not going to say it's bad. I've gone to them before. I like kite surfing. My kids and my family doesn't, so we go to some place where everyone can do their own thing, and I sometimes just need to go a little kite surfing or do some skiing, and I stay at a place like that. I'm not here to condemn it. I'm just talking about the mindset, which is that we take culture and we put it here, and we've done that for so long that we get blind to it. And here's an example. So airline food. If you fly anywhere around the world on any international airline, this is on Japanese Airlines, there's their Western dinner. That's the English breakfast on Royal Jordanian. There's the continental breakfast on Siem Reap Airlines. And there's from the Indonesian's national carrier. You can get the Western snack. And the thing is, whether you're doing it on an airline or going into a place like this, here's what happens. It's kind of like asking your butler to go jogging for you. Only in this case, it sort of applies. Because what you do is when you decide to just have a Western meal, some foreign person had to make your food for you. So it's like having that meal is like a unit of travel culture, and by you giving it up, someone else had it. Someone had your foreign experience for you to make that meal so you didn't have to have a cultural experience. It's just transferred. And another thing that happens, another sort of a mindset of the traveler, is that we're so used to people telling us where to go. We go to travel agents, and they say, go there and do this, and they're all over the world, and they tell all sorts of people what they're supposed to do. And then you've got tour guides, and they tell you what to do. And they have kind of a fun way of doing it. They always have stuff to follow. You know, you're following different things that they like to hold up. Here's one I took, took this one last year from ITB. And they're telling you where to look, where you're supposed to stop, get out of your car, look, take a picture. We're so used to we're conditioned to being told what to do. And even what we're supposed to see before we die, they can't agree on it. There's 40 things you're supposed to see. One says 500, one says 50, one says 1,000. Is this the object, to see a certain checklist of things before we die? It kind of creates this mentality. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say about the all-inclusive mindset. I want to jump in the social media thing as well. Here's my take on it. I'm staying in a youth hostel now, in fact, in town. When I used to stay in youth hostels, they looked more like this. And they looked like this, and you join people. Nowadays, it looks a lot more like this. They're all surfing, they're all checking their email and Facebooking and tweeting and updating their blogs and all that kind of stuff. They're having social interaction, just not with each other. You know, maybe this person over there is watching her favorite television show while the other person's doing Skype with their family and the other person's on Facebook. It's like you never left home. It's just a pity. It's a pity that it happens that way. If you're a DMO, if you're a destination marketing organization, you still probably want to encourage a lot of Wi-Fi, a lot of connectivity, because these days, what happens when they travel internationally, so many people turn off their data roaming and they don't want to upload anything for fear that they're going to get hit with like a 20,000 euro phone bill when they get home. So it's smart for them to do it because some of you out here are like walking advertising agencies. You've got huge followings on Twitter, on Facebook, and your friends spread to friends, and it's important for these marketers that they do this. The thing is, we're just going to have to hope that travelers overcome these bad social habits on their own, and I don't have any high hopes that it's going to happen soon because, well, travelers don't have the most rational travel behavior. Case in point. Anyone who puts Machu Picchu on their ass cannot be trusted. Here's one of the more interesting things that's happening with tourism as well that's kind of combines with the social aspect of it, is that they're not tapping I think, their most important resource. And it's not the sun, and it's not the beach, and it's not this cheap prices and this menial wage service that allows people to live like kings where they couldn't at home, which typically generates travel. I think it's something else. I think it's this. I think it's the local people. There's enough local people in the world's biggest destination, France, almost, to host every single tourist that comes through. Not that it's going to happen, but there's that potential. And it offers an authentic experience. It offers something that's unique, educational. And here's another big thing. If you make a new friend somewhere, you're more likely to stay in touch, tell people about it, and go back. They should be encouraging friendships, but they're not. What they are doing is they're advertising them. They're selling the concept that you're going to meet a local, but they don't actually connect the dots and help you meet a local. I think there's going to be a huge demand. There's increasing demand for this all the time. Last year it was Lonely Planet's top trend, that there's going to be this kind of connectivity, peer-to-peer, traveler to traveler. Instead, what the industry is doing is the exact opposite. And not intentionally, but they're putting up great signage, so we don't have to stop and ask locals and interact with them. They've got great apps these days. So again, you don't have to interact with the locals. And great tourist information booths everywhere you turn, and brochures and all that, so you don't actually end up interacting with the locals. The way that you typically interact these days with the locals is when you buy something from them or when you check into your hotel, more or less. There's some exceptions, of course, but I mean, that's what it's getting down to. The interactions have been removed from travel, which is sort of a sad thing, because in my mind, travel's all about a cultural exchange. That's what travel's at its core. And I think here's the cure. It's also social media, or aspects of it. The second line, maybe less, depends how you go about it. If you rent a room in someone else's flat and you end up meeting them and seeing how the inside of their home looks, that's interesting. But there are lots of ways to do this. And in fact, I've been doing this special project with Visit Sweden, where we created this, Visit a Swede. It launched this last fall, and it was tied in with couchsurfing, but we had some issues with couchsurfing. They were taken over by some venture capitalists and pulled out all their data, and it got a little weird, so we're doing a new workaround now, but this is what it looks like. But two of the interesting things we're going to be pulling in, the top one is the Swedish national sports clubs. And so I think we've got like 500,000 sports clubs in Sweden. It's some crazy number. And we're pulling in all these APIs. So if you're a French person and you're into fencing and you come to Sweden, you can go in there and find the nearest sports clubs to your hotel that do fencing. And there's a contact info, so you can reach out to them and say, can I join you at practice and do some fencing with you? You have an organic contact. And the lunch den thing is new. We actually haven't even launched it yet. And it's free, and you guys can all do it. We're basically saying, look, if you're a webmaster in New York Times and you want to come to Sweden and you want to meet the webmaster at the newspaper here, you can certainly call them up, and we encourage you to do that. You can go in through LinkedIn and try to find them, but we just made a free group called Lunch Den, so that if you join it and you don't have a paid account, you can just connect with each other and speak with each other in a more easy way and encourage the whole thing to happen. And I wanted to take a little quick break. Mr. Conradi asked me to, he liked the signs and the slogans from last year, so he asked me to bring a few back this year. So I just thought we'd take a little, kind of like a little sorbet pause between the main meal before I get to my final point, and just share a few of my favorite signs that I didn't show last year. I don't know how you're supposed to beware of invisibility, but it's there. This is a real challenge. And it's a little hard to make out the bottom of the sign, possibly because it's being blocked by all the marijuana. I like a lot of the signs that are extremely obvious. I have quite a collection of obvious signs as well. There's this one. How about this one? This is extremely obvious. Keep your eyes open, is what it says. Yeah. You never know when falling snow or rain is going to strike. This is what happens when they let unemployed fortune cookie writers get into the sign-making business. This, I would say the score here is path 1, hiker 0. And I thought we'd play a little game. It works like this. I'm just going to show a piece of a sign, and then someone can shout out what they think the whole sign is. And then if you get it, you can come see me later, and I'll give you a book. I brought a couple of books of sign books. So I'll just show. So this example looks like this, but it actually looks like, I guess it's no limboing. I don't know what that is. Don't get clotheslined. So just feel free to shout it out. Here's the first one. We're only going to do 3. Does anyone want to guess what that is? Someone just shout out, and then or put your hand up, and I'll call on you. Yes, go ahead. What'd you say? Baklava? What? Can someone repeat? Put your seat back. It's actually don't get hit in the head by a dump truck or maybe an elephant. But I'll give you a book anyway for trying. Come see me later. We got 2 more to go. Anyone want to guess on this one? Who said that? Toilet. It's actually not a toilet. It's puke. It's either throw an apple away or you get to puke. But that's all. Those are your only 2 options. But you'll also get a book. All right, this is about the last one. Anyone dare to guess? Nobody? Well, seriously, nobody wants to guess? I've got a book to give away. Sorry, don't turn around. Is that what you said? That was good. I don't know what you guys were thinking, but that's just a... This is a strangely perverted audience. Just a couple slogans as well. I thought we'd go after Hilton. They have travel should take you places. Duh. I think it should be more like travel should take you someplace unique, only Hilton probably can't say that because all their places look the same. Stockholm, where I live, really, it's a wonderful city, but the best they could come up with is capital of Scandinavia. There is no capital of Scandinavia. It doesn't exist. It's made up. Why don't call themselves capital of Northern Europe? I mean, it's complete BS. Panama, it will never leave you. I don't know, I just remind, like you're supposed to get Giardia or some gonorrhea. I don't know what it is. That's me. It's not, don't fault the campaign, that's me. Finally, let's tackle this last one, responsible tourism. This is a tricky one. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I mean, is it riding around in an eco truck? Is it going into a 5-star hotel and then using your towel twice instead of throwing it on the floor? Does that make you an eco-tourist or a sustainable tourist? How about this? Eco-helicopter rides. They even have eco-cruise ships. This is how they advertise themselves, a little eco symbol they made out, like an eco-propeller. I mean, I don't know. That's the thing. You can call yourself, this is an eco keynote, by the way. Now, you can call yourself eco, and so it makes it, or sustainable, or it just makes it really hard when you're the consumer to know what's what. I mean, you could probably right up until, eco baby seal hunting off the coast of Prince Edward Sound. It wouldn't surprise me. By the way, just to be fair, I feel the same way about a lot of adventure tourism. I don't quite get that concept either. A lot of it, to me, feels like an amusement park outdoors. If you sign up for something, know when it starts, know when it ends, and know exactly what's going to happen, it's not an adventure. Maybe it's just me. I mean, I get, it's just a way to label it. And there are adventures, and stuff can go wrong, but I don't know. You just sort of have to go into this with eyes open and investigate on your own. Find out how much of an adventure is it? How eco is it? Because there's some good people out there fighting the good fight to make the world more sustainable, and they deserve credit for what they're doing. There's people who are doing some really cool adventure trips, and they deserve credit for what they're doing, but some of this stuff really blurs the line. All right, so now we got that out of the way, let's tackle the question a little bit more thoroughly. All right, here's how we look at tourism. it's green and it's good. Well, I think it's possible to have too much of a good thing. I think if you put 50 or 150 or 500 of the most eco-friendly, super sustainable, hemp clothes wearing, didgeridoo playing eco-tourists in any little town, it's gonna steamroller the culture. Part of it hangs on numbers. I asked this question to some of the leading, including our very own Professor Dr. Conradi down there, some of the guy from New York Times, National Geographic, professors from around the world, the founder of Lonely Planet. They all said, with the exception of the guy in the upper right up here, who basically said, it depends what you mean by ruined. But everyone else was like, definitely can be ruined. Let's just take that for a second. If it can be ruined, what are we doing? What are we doing to fix it? And who's responsible for it? Why don't they say that when they say responsible tourism? Why don't they say who's responsible? I think that's a good question. Are we travel writers guilty? Totally. Totally guilty in different ways. I mean, this guy in the upper left, Rick Steves, he has a travel TV show in the States. He's almost single-handedly turned the Cinque Terre Trail in Italy into a Disney tour. The guidebooks. I mean, is it okay for a newspaper on the other side of the planet to sell quaintness that doesn't belong to them? They put it on the cover, they send tourists there, they never asked the village if they wanted the people. I mean, and if they did, maybe they asked the mayor, who also happens to be the town developer, who of course wants the business. But did they have a meeting and inform people what's tourism going to do to their town before they just brought them in? Or they just pushed a button on the print button and zoom, there they went. That's something we all need to, as this industry, think about. Are the airlines guilty? How could they be? They're just flying in as many tourists as they can. They don't care about the economic impact or cultural impact of bringing them. And one of the reasons they could change it, really simply, is to show a film for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, about being a more responsible traveler when they land. This guy here gave this great TED talk, and he's talking about the truth of dishonesty. And he said one of the best ways to get people to be more honest and act better is to give them a reminder, show them a video. Imagine you're going to go hiking in Nepal, and before you go out there, you've got to stand in front of the ranger and say, I swear I'm going to be a good hiker. I will not litter. I will be nice to the people. I will be responsible, blah, 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 and then sign my name and go hiking. I'll bet you get a lot more responsible hikers and tourists out of that. Pretty simple stuff. How about these big hotels? Yeah, they aren't so culturally sensitive all the time, and I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of them bribed local officials or got the rules changed a little bit with some clever lobbying so they could build this monstrosity right on the beach. I don't know. I don't know the statistics. I'm always surprised to see that they often have special regulations written for them in some cases. Are we the travelers, the backpackers and other travelers, are we guilty? Do we walk around in places wearing clothing that's culturally insensitive all the time? We could be better too. Are the DMOs, are they guilty? The tourism offices. Yeah, I would actually say in some ways they're the least guilty and most guilty. They're the only ones who could possibly be the police to put some limits on stuff like this, to help regulate it. But it's not in their mandate, because a DMO just is a destination marketing organization. I propose that they change it to a DEMMO and make themselves a destination experience management marketing organization. It needs to be under the same umbrella. Otherwise, they're just not talking to each other. Because if it's not, you can't be promoting this and then have a product that's that. It doesn't work. It's going to backfire in the long run. You know, think of it this way. Think if Augusta National Golf Course suddenly said, everyone can come and play golf here. Well, the next day they're going to have like 500,000 people waiting to play. But you know what they're going to do? They're going to have a starter. And they're going to have a line that's like 50 kilometers long, but they're going to make them go in foursomes every 15 minutes. They're going to manage the experience. So here's this graph you've probably seen, right? I'm going to do a little thing. I just took the last bit of it and I made it bigger because I wanted to know what was going to happen a little further down the road. Then I make it a little bigger. So we're talking 27 years from now, we're going to have more than 3 times as many tourists. Where the hell are we going to put them? What are you going to let people in the Venice only if you have someone standing on your shoulder? How is that going to practically work? I don't know how it's going to work. I have no idea. We do put limits in a lot of places. We put them in hotel rooms. They don't assign another person into your hotel room. They don't put another person on your lap. although I'm sure Ryanair is working on it at the moment. There are already long lists to see the gorillas. There's a cap of 400 people on this island off the coast of Brazil called Fernando de Noronha. There's a list to get on to go to the Inca Trail. In the Boundary Waters canoe area between Minnesota, the US, and Canada, you have to get a permit. To go down the Grand Canyon in a private raft also requires a permit, is a waiting list. These are some of the few managed destinations or attractions in the world. For the rest of it, it's like a free-for-all. Bring them in. That's our attitude. Here's our basic tourist math around the world, right? This is how it works. Tourists equal money, more tourists is more money. Simple math, right? You have a full hotel, build some more hotels. The planes are full, bring in some more planes. We got friendly locals, tourists are gonna love them. If they love them, more love. More love, more money. That's the mentality right now. And it can't keep going. You know, they say that there's no eco in economics because there's not a cost to bring up these raw minerals and there's not a cost that you pay to throw them away. Well, there's no, I don't know, ism in tourism. There's not a philosophy behind it that manages our long-term view and approach to this stuff. Here's some of the core academic graphs. This was like the first one, I think it was in '74 by Plog, and he basically said, what's going to happen is, you know, you'll bring in these tourists, the tourists will love the money, love the tourists, the locals will love them, and then suddenly they'll go, hey, you're taking our best fishing spots, and you're taking over our best restaurants, and you guys are being kind of rude, and you're walking by and just taking pictures of us, and they're going to get sick of the tourists, and it's going to go down, and then it's not going to be popular anymore. And this guy, he just said, look, he just wrote the stages of how irritated locals are going to get. And then Butler in 1980 did this graph where he said, yeah, it's basically Plog's graph, but if when you get here, you can decide kind of to be like Madonna and reinvent yourself and, you know, turn yourself into an Ayurvedic destination or a kite surfing destination, and maybe you'll get another little bump out of it. But those are some of the big ones right there. And it doesn't bode well for the industry unless we take some action. Here's what we need. We need some smart tourism management. It's pretty simple stuff. Here's the ones that are currently in use. Here's the Grand Canyon website where you sign up to get on the list. It looks like it was done by a 3-year-old. Here's the one for Fernando de Noronha. It's just one little thing and you click it and it's done. It's pretty basic stuff. Here's the Inca Trail one. It's better, lets you know how many spots are available, but it still looks pretty simple, not very slick. This is the slickest one for the Boundary Waters canoe area in northern Minnesota. They've got these points of entry, they put on a map, they show you the daily quota for each put-in spot, and then they make you watch a video 9 minutes long about how to behave when you're there. Smart, easy. Why aren't more people doing it? Thought we'd look at Disney, they've also got stuff. Did you know that Disney has a limit on how many people they let in? In the Magic Kingdom, it's 100,000. In a couple days of the year, they hit that by about 10:30 in the morning, and they just close the gates. And they don't care if your family's driven across the country to get there. They close the gates and say, we're full. If Disney's doing it, can't other destinations do it? They do a little bit more sophisticated system where you can try to get a slot time to a ride in the afternoon where you can get into a special queue that's a bit faster. And they have this thing, if you're staying at, like a perk, you're staying in the Disney hotels, you can come in a little earlier and stay a little later when they close the park to everybody else. But they don't actually keep some of the best rides going, so it's a little bit of a rip. Here's the crazy thing. We have higher technology for Angry Birds than we do for tourism management systems. We have higher technology for iFart app than for tourism management systems. This is something that's got to catch up. It's crazy that it hasn't. And here's the other thing. Here's why. You're saying, why should we do it? Well, you're going to make more money doing it. I think you will. I'm not an economist. Well, I mean, I studied economics, but I'm not officially an economist. Look at this for a second. Let's look outside the travel industry. In your own hometowns, when there's nightclubs on Friday, Saturday night, 10 o'clock, there's a queue outside every single place, right? And then you get in, and there's nobody there. They make you wait in a queue to show that there's demand. It's self-created demand. And then let's say you get in and you say, there's nobody here. But then you think, I stood in line for so long, I just checked my jacket for €3. Screw it, those people are coming in eventually. Let's just have a $10 drink and, you know, sit here for an hour. That's how it works. And then you remember how popular the place was. This is how it happened in Iceland. In 1954, there was an economics professor who wrote an economic paper. They were poor fishermen until that paper was written, who said, we need to have a quota a total allowable catch that was determined every year, and every fisherman got a quota, a number, a percentage of the total that they could fish. After they started doing that, they were immediately wealthy and worked less. It works in other industries. One of the reasons it's not been applied to travel is all the academics seem to be focusing on this, or the lack of it. There's a magic number. They think, how many people is the right amount? Like some beaches you want to have a little crowd, a little action on the beach and volleyball, and some beaches you want to have more desolate. How many people should be in a park? It's hard. You could argue forever and never get anywhere, and that's why I think nothing is happening. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I sat down yesterday for about an hour with the kind people, the wonderful people at Bhutan. Are they here today? Anyone from Bhutan here? Did they make it? Okay. They were really lovely to speak with, and they shared some of their data with me. And I wanted to use this as an example of what could be done. Because Bhutan is probably one of the most progressive countries in the world in this way, that they care enough about their culture that they wanted to protect it. They put a value on it. So what if we did this and just cut off the tourists there at the peaks? Well, they kind of, the line wouldn't be there, but they almost do that already. I drew it about 15%, but I just picked it out of thin air. They have three planes of their airline. That's the only way in or out. So they do actually have a limit, but it's not because they decided it, it's because of the plane capacity. But anyway, let's say we did that. Are you going to lose 7,000 visitors? You might. I would argue that it's more like this. When you book at a nice restaurant and you've just read a great review about it and they say, sorry, we can't get you in on Friday or Saturday, we're all booked up, but next Friday we've got place, do you want it? I'm like, yeah, okay. Sometimes you say no, sometimes you say yes. So I think what's going to happen is that that blue line that I drew with my hand last night at about 11 at night, which is why it's kind of shaky, is going to be, you'll say you lose 2,000 instead of 7,000, because some are going to book on those other shoulder seasons. And in fact, what I would argue is that you're not even going to lose that many people, because what's going to happen is people are going to say, I didn't get in, did you get in? If they give away some free passes to get in, the radio stations do it just like they do when Beyonce comes to town. They promote the thing, then you're going to get a buzz of how hard it is to get in, just like a restaurant gets a buzz that it's hard to get in, and you'll get even more. I think you'll get plus tourists. More tourists by having less. It seems weird. And then you can do something else that's kind of clever. These are the same mechanisms we do in the hotel industry and the airline industry. I'm just applying them to the destination. We put in a premium, like a business class, where they say, our permits are all sold out, but for an extra $50 a day, by the way, it's $250 a day to go to Bhutan. For an extra $50 a day, we have a VIP pass available, but that allows you to do such and such and such extra stuff. Could totally do that. They say that they've kind of tried that by taking these things, whoops, let me go forward again, by taking these things right here and making this season on sale a bit cheaper. But I'm saying these people who go there, their average age in Bhutan is 55 to 60 years old. They're all retired CEOs who can pay for that. They go, look when they go, October and March are those peak seasons. They're not going over summer holiday and Christmas holiday. So these are already very flexible, kind of retired CEOs who could alter their behavior, and they're not going to be attracted by a sale. If they were attracted by a sale, they wouldn't be going to Bhutan in the first place. But if you're a destination that has a lot of families that can only get off in the summer and Christmas, maybe you have a special amount of passes only available to families. Or segment the market. You can do it in a smart way. Because you want to be able to guarantee that it's going to be good. You want to have a good product, not that product. The product you're promoting. And so if you divide it up in a really clever way, like these segmented markets, and you say, okay, you got the premium, you have a special slice for people who are return visitors, you have special prices for students and academic and family, you have a lottery that's free that you can use to promote it. So you can also say to people, just like I think Obama did on YouTube with the Easter egg roll, it's open to everybody, but by lottery. And then you have it for business travelers who are there. 1 minute. And they say, okay, this works for a little tiny place, but what about a big country? Well, look what they do here at the US. They charge you $15 to come in. Well, they've already make you do it. They've got you on a website. They could also, while you're there, they could maybe up it to $30 and say that includes entrance to one of the major attractions in the US, just so they can introduce you to the fact that there's a waiting list on all these things, and that you have to get into a list and a queue for these things. And it works like getting a ticket for a big TV show. You have standby, and you have the reserve stuff, and you have premium stuff. It's pretty basic stuff. So anyway, so we hit the all-inclusive mentality, we hit social media, and we got a responsible approach to tourism. I think the thing is, you guys are doing great on the marketing. I mean, it looks amazing out there. It does. You're doing a really good job on that. What needs some work is connecting the locals with your visitors, and making your products great. Some focus on the product. Make it live up to your brochure. And if they do that, people aren't going to feel that the destination is becoming this. Thank you guys so much for coming.